Hello everyone, and welcome to week 5. We're going to practice on using the quadratic equations, finding different ways to solve them, and using the discriminant. In this video we're going to solve or find the roots by applying the quadratic formula. Now the general quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is always the number in front of x squared, b is always the number in front of x, and c is always the number without a variable. Now if there's a minus sign in front of one of the numbers, then the number is considered to be a negative when you get ready to plug it into your formulas. So again, a is always in front of x squared, b is always in front of x, and c is always a number that doesn't have a variable with it. Okay, the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we'll plug in our numbers for a, b, and c. We'll simplify under the square root symbol as far as we can until we get it down to one number, and then we'll start to work outside of it. Alright, the first problem that we're going to tackle is f of x, and this f of x just stands for function notation. So f of x equals x squared minus 16. We want to use the quadratic formula to find the roots of the function. And what the roots stand for, if you were graphing these, the roots would be where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, so let's begin here. We know our formula is x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac. In this one, a is equal to 1 because that is the understood number to be in front of x squared. We don't have a single x, so b is 0. C is a number by itself with no variable with it, so c is negative 16 since we have that minus in front of it. So we'll start off by just plugging in, have x equals negative b, so negative 0, plus or minus b squared, or 0 squared, minus 4 times a, or 1 times c, which is 16. And that is all over 2 times a. So in this case, 2 times 1. Now once you get it there, you just start simplifying. And you see we have these zeros here. Negative 0 is nothing, so I don't have to worry about rewriting that. So I have plus or minus 0 squared is nothing, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now I need to multiply this. Negative 4 times 1 times 16. Since I only have one negative number there, then my answer should also be negative. I'm sorry, that should be a negative 16 there. So I have negative 4 times 1 times negative 16. So since I have two negatives there, then my answer here, when I multiply those out, should be positive 64 underneath my radical symbol. And 2 times 1 is 2. Now we know that the square root of 64 is a perfect square, so I can go ahead and take the square root of that. That'll give me positive or negative 8 over 2. Now once I get that square root as simplified as far as I can, this positive negative is going to split my problem up into two possible answers. So I'll have a positive 8 over 2, or I have a negative 8 over 2. And we would solve or simplify both of those to get our two roots. So x equals 4, or x equals negative 4. Those would be the roots of this quadratic function. And what you're going to see as you look at the other videos, there are different ways of finding the roots. Using the quadratic formula is one of the ways that we could solve these or find the roots of these functions. Okay. Let's look at the next one. We have x squared plus x plus 14. Again, this g of x is just function notation. Really, you could replace that with the variable y, which we don't need. So let's pick out our A, B, and C. A is 1, understood because you don't see a number there. B is 1, that's understood because you don't see a number in front of X. And C is 14. So if you had a number in front of X squared, let's say we had 2 in front of X squared, then A would be 2. So you use the numbers that are in front of X squared for A, the number in front of X for B, the number by itself for C. And then you plug into your formula. So we have X equals -1 plus or minus the square root of 1 square minus 4 times 1 times 14. All over 2 times A, and A is 1, so all over 2 times 1. And then you start working through. So X equals -1 plus or minus 1 squared is 1. -4 times 1 times 14 is -56. And it's negative because we only have one negative number that's being multiplied within this group. 2 times 1 is 2. Keep simplifying until you get one number underneath the radical. -1 plus or minus 1 minus 56 is -55. Now, in one of our earlier concepts, we learned something about -1 and I square. This is where that would come into play. When you have a negative number underneath the square root symbol, you can change that negative into I square. So I can rewrite this as X equals -1 plus or minus 55 I square. And the reason I would want to do that is because I can take the square root of I square. And the square root of I square is simply I. So I can simplify that a little bit more by changing the negative underneath the square root into I square and then taking the square root of I square. I can't take the square root of 55. It's not a perfect square. And since this is a complex number, we're going to say that this answer will be okay right here in this form. So I took the negative, changed it into I square because it was underneath my radical, and I took the square root of I square, which is just I, and I could not take the square root of 55, so I just left it like it was. So I have -1 plus or minus I times the square root of 55 over 2, and that will be your final answer. Okay, I do hope that those examples will help you out with using the quadratic formula, and good luck.